So I really appreciate you guys being here from all over the world. We've got New Zealand, Holland, Sweden, Denmark, um, Morocco, New Zealand. Did I say New Zealand? You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. London, Finland. Uh, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get started on today. Really, really important announcements. Please make sure you're watching through the announcements. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, Portrait Studio is released for Mac. On the Mac store, I will upload an announcement video that I'll work on tonight for tomorrow. It will be available on the Apple Store, sorry. And yeah, so it's a long time. We've been waiting for the Mac release. It's finally available. Mac made us jump through hoops, which is why we never even wanted to bother with them. But it took us a good 6 months to finally get it out after we were done programming, after Abu finished programming. And you guys really got to just send out a special thank you to Abu. The amount of work he puts into Portrait Studio, it just would not be possible without him. I may be the idea guy, but Abu's the mechanic. Abu is the genius making it all work. So please make sure you guys send a quick thank you to him. Even on Facebook, if you guys just send him a dedicated message on the Facebook group, you go to istebrak.com, click on the Facebook, you can find the group there, and you can message him directly. It'll mean a lot to him. But yeah, he's worked really hard to make sure it gets out, back and forth, fixing, troubleshooting. We went all the way across the country to get a MacBook really quickly for us to use. And not across the country, but yeah, felt like it. And we did a lot to make sure that this happens for you guys, for anyone who wants to use it. Portrait Studio is an amazing referencing software. It helps you build entire scenes from scratch to reference. It's an amazing resource for anyone who wants to draft, and it's also an educational resource as well. It's not free, but it is priced in such a way where it's fair to us and to you. And you don't have to learn how to model to be able to access three-dimensional models, light control and camera control. So if you guys are interested in buying that, if you guys are interested in adding that to your body of tools, it will be available tomorrow, and I'll upload a video dedicated to that topic. Another announcement is tomorrow is the start of the Villain Design Challenge. I will pin all of this on the Reddit, so if you haven't joined us on Reddit, please join us on Reddit. Google Plus may shut down anytime soon. If you join on Reddit, you won't have that weird, awkward gap in not knowing where to find the community. The community, for the most part, all actives have already shifted over into Reddit, but we have a number of people from the Google Plus who haven't moved in yet, and people who are still uploading into the Google Plus. Please make sure that if you are uploading, you're double posting here and in the Google Plus, just for back records if for some reason Google Plus hasn't shut down. Please make sure you guys are going to Reddit and joining us there. And Patreon, for anyone interested in supporting me on Patreon, the new season, the new month starts, along with a new assignment. So if you want to make it for this month's assignment, you can join us on Patreon, and you'll be added to the Discord for the apprentice group. Our next assignment due date is the 5th for January assignment, and then February assignment will be assigned after the 5th. And if you are something of a beginner, if you feel like you're not ready for full-on design assignments, there is an entire body of recommended assignments customized by myself for you for beginner studies. Anything that helps you get your foot in the door, and at least catch up with some fundamentals to the rest of your to the rest of the apprentices in the group. And that way, eventually, maybe by March, you'll be able to join us for the full assignments. You'll feel more confident after having done these customized assignments. Everything is in grayscale for beginners, and a lot of fundamental form studies, anything that really helps solidify your fundamentals and where they're missing. And if you want a diagnosis, all you got to do is post into the introduce yourself channel with a link to your gallery, and I'll be able to tell you which assignment matches and works for you. And yeah, so that's it for assignments. Today is going to be about beginner mistakes. Basically, beginner mistakes, I'm always covering beginner mistakes. But being able to just zone in on one painting and where this particular, not beginner, but beginner mistakes. By saying beginner mistakes, I mean to say that They are mistakes that still linger with you. Even if your work looks good, you still have a beginner mindset when it comes to certain fundamentals. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Just a quick water break. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Guys, get Portrait Studio. It's amazing. It's really worth it. It was a huge hassle for me to find a way for paying for it, but now I wish I had bought it earlier. Thank you so much, Al. I really appreciate that. Let's get started. So some of the beginner mistakes that you have here, the reason why it doesn't look good in certain ways is that you have a lot of these specific beginner mistakes I can point to. One of the many, and I'm not saying these in any particular order, it's pretty much just everything goes at the moment, is this soft brush. Oh, okay, my Photoshop is not matched with my thing just yet. Did you see that? Did you see how I painted one side of the canvas and it ended up on the other side? That's because the driver wasn't on before Photoshop was open. Okay, so if we look at the navigator, you can see this really, really awkward shadow right here. It's really awkward and muddy. This is because of your soft brush use. Let me just find a better pen. Color. Alright, so soft brush is a beginner mistake. Sorry about that, right? Soft brush, it gives you too much paint too soon. It also overblends, and soft brush has this really annoying feather to it. And this feather is adding paint, but you don't see it. You don't see the soft brush adding all this paint. And so if we look at the navigator, that's why I said look at the navigator, because we can track down exactly where your shadow ends. You may think your shadow is right here, but really your shadow is right over here. And that makes 0 sense for this painting. What is here that's casting a shadow all the way out here if the light is coming from top down? You probably thought you were just casting a simple shadow from the hair. But what happens is the shadow would be a little bit closer and more pocketed under the hair instead of all the way out here orbiting. But the reason why that even happened is because your soft brush is so powerful and it has such a massive reach and it's so perfect universally all around, because around the entire edge of the brush is an equal gradient. You don't know really how much paint you're adding in. So let's take a look. Exactly how much paint. Look, paint is all the way out here. So the best way to tell how far the paint is going is to look at this corner and use the periphery. Look at this corner up here and use your periphery vision to see where that paint ends. It's all the way out here. And if I keep going, you'll see how far that brush travels. Just take a look at that. And I'm just clicking with full opacity. This is what soft brush does. You thought it was just the limit of the brush. The soft brush is all the way out here. And it's this dangerous feather that's causing you to gain shadow exactly where you don't want it. What if you were drawing an organic form study and you overuse soft brush? You're supposed to use soft brush for organic form study. And you threw all of this soft brush just so that you can limit it here, but you know there's a feather in there, and that feather is traveling out here. The terminator should just simply be there, left over of the core shadow after the bounce light was applied. So what you're doing with your soft brush is you're over-representing you're over-representing the presence of shadow, and you don't even know it. That's a beginner mistake. Stop overusing soft brush. Stop using soft brush, period. You guys aren't blocking. When you have a block of paint, you know exactly where you attach the paint. You know exactly where that paint was destined to be. And then if you need a feather, you can smudge it with a smudge brush. And a common beginner mistake as well is not using smudge brush, because you are controlling completely the dispersion of color. Alright? Well, soft brush does not allow you to control your values this much. And you'll end up bringing in this crazy amount of, this crazy amount of paint. What is this? What's going on here? where it simply does not belong. All right, and I have this annoying, ugly little airbrush moving across the edge of the paint. That isn't controlled. All right, so this extra painting, this extra paint that you have out here that should typically be stopped. Look at how far it reaches. Look, I'm using my edge brush to show you how far this paint starts. I'm using the background value with a blocking brush. Did you see that? There's paint even outside of the edge you thought existed. Stop using soft brush. It's ugly. Write that back to me. And when you feel like you are more aware of this, when you feel like, yeah, I'm starting to get aware of how far this reaches, I know what level to apply my brush, I'm using neighboring values, I don't really mind the extra little bit of blending, then you can start using soft brush again and not feel so out of control, not feel like you've lost complete control of your painting. All right? Soft brush does not give you enough control over your values. Beautifully said. Especially if you're using color, as it's less forgiving. Excellent. It makes the painting look dirty. Beautiful job. So soft brush is one, and I'm going to ask you guys to repeat to me all the beginner mistakes at the end of the video, at the end of the class. I'll leave myself a little note here. So please make sure you guys are writing these down, and good note takers get free brushes. I solemnly swear to stop using soft brush. And what you have to do is remember that you are using the edge brush, you are using the hard edge brush, because for every plane is one value. You get one brush stroke, one value for every surface area. And if we're here trying to study form studies and talk about the value of form studies, the power of form studies, we're basically just teaching you how to apply one value per plane. You have a cube, and you have a cube that will one day represent a head or an arm or a nose. What you're trying to do is represent one side as one value. You're not over blending on every single side, because what was the point of the form study then if you're over blending everywhere? Over blending is the disease that you guys are dealing with that doesn't help you assign a specific core shadow for a specific side, and then you'll have realistic light representation. So over blending forgives you from not paying attention to the light source. Over blending forgives you for using lines. Over blending hides line dependency by thickening the line where the line used to be. Just because you thickened it up doesn't mean there's no line anymore. There's still line dependency. So remember, do not use soft brush before perfecting your edge brush, because it's one brush stroke, one value per surface area. And the surface area is the side of the cube. One value per section. And then blend later, and then blend them together later, like thinking of a low poly head structure. So your shadow here is sitting right on top. Look how soon the shadow starts. All the way out here is sitting right on top of a light spot. It is the light spot of the face. It is the competing light spot with the nose. The forehead is the most important. The light is not from one side or the other. If the light was from over this section, that would explain why the shadow travels all the way this way. But look at where your nose is pointing. Your nose is symmetrical pointing down. That means the light is symmetrical pointing down. Okay, so you've completely thrown away an entire light spot on this sphere of the head, and that's why it looks unrealistic. You do not have enough of a representation for the elevation of the nose. I've talked about value sharing. You don't have a lot of it because you are making the sides of the nose pretty light, so that's okay. Just need to reblend and possibly lighten it up just a little bit, but your planes are very weak. And just considering how you mistreated the forehead as a plane, they're extremely weak. All right. Another beginner mistake. I mean, I could say that lack of core shadows is a beginner mistake. And of course it is, and it would definitely apply. But beginner mistakes I like to think of as habits, whereas form studies and lack of knowledge in your form and misrepresentation of your like value sharing and being unable to see the cube, I call those all fundamental mistakes. Not so much beginner habits, those are knowledge lacks. So you are lacking knowledge along with a nice sprinkling of bad habits haunting your work that you need to clear up so that the true picture comes out, so that this character's true beauty is revealed, which you cannot accomplish right now if you're fighting against these bad habits and fighting against this lack of knowledge. So your knowledge problem has to do with your lack of core shadows. And the bad habits is the soft brush use. And the lack of knowledge is the fact that you did not remember to preserve the forehead as one of the highest points that catches light in the face. You can throw a shadow over here for either side of the hair as it tucks in. As the face tucks in beside the hair. Alright, it's already looking better. Another beginner mistake I talked about before are the dots for the mouth corners. That needs to be radial. So we're getting rid of those completely. The blank expression is a beginner mistake. It's a bad habit, but I'd say that's to do with not studying enough expressions, not knowing the expression you are going for. But this is a beginner mistake coming up. The lack of shadow on the lower eyelid. It's also linked to knowledge. I'm not sure why you guys ignore this shadow. The eyeball is a sphere. Every time the students will go crazy for the lip corners, they'll throw in some really crazy shadows everywhere. They'll throw in the nose shadow, no problem. But they'll forget about other geometries that sit on the face. And remember when I told you guys, I look to the eye socket to measure skill. The eye socket has little to no form development on it at all. There's no real crease here. It looks like a very simplified 3D model, just without all the realism. You guys need to start learning where your edges are, which side of the brushstroke to paint, etc. I'm blending away the eyebrow to make it feel more natural, and I'm blending at this edge work that I added. And just take a look at how realistic everything is starting to look. Another beginner mistake is just gray tones in your shadows, in your midtone, and in your highlight. Skin isn't gray, skin has blood under it. So if she was some sort of vampiric character, then you can just make the skin a little bit more clammy, a little bit more dull. But she's got glowing, sparkling, beautiful eyes. She's got red lips. You need to start bringing in a red tone in your highlights and in your midtones and in your shadows. There needs to be more of a red tone. So ignore the rest of the saturation. Just focus on what's happening with the skin. This is typically where the skin should be, and this is where yours was. Really too close to shadows. Really too close to grays. Another problem, another beginner mistake is the excessive highlights in the eyes. Once you get rid of those and just give the eyes a really basic shape, you'll see that you really had nothing going on. Outside of these sparkles, not much was being used. So the size of the iris is a little bit big. But once I got rid of those excessive highlights, not only were they useless decoration, they were hiding something from you, which was the focus and the gaze. The gaze was not believable. She wasn't looking at anyone. She was just kind of zoned out, like a drone that hasn't yet been assigned a personality. Or like an android or something. And that's something that I notice in a lot of anime realism hybrid artists. Most of them have a beginner quality in their work, unfortunately, because they thought that, I don't need to study these. I can just focus on this hybrid style. And I don't need to do much else in regards to realism or shadows or cast shadows. Because when you ask a beginner, what makes a painting look realistic, they'll say shading or cast shadows. They won't really think about edge work or value sharing or fundamentals or geometric anatomy. They don't have that knowledge. They don't have that vocabulary. But it's just like you don't know what you're missing unless you know what you're missing. You have to first know what you're missing. So just getting into the vocabulary, just getting familiar with the language will be one step closer to being more aware of your mistakes. But the eyes look really dead, really emotionless. And that's not because I took away the sparkles. No, no, no. If you're arguing with me right now while you're watching the recording, no. It is not because I took away the glitter in the eye. It is because how much of the eye is being covered up by this oversized iris and this dead expression everywhere else in the face. The eyebrows are doing nothing. Alright, so I'm going to give her a bit of a stare, and I'm going to shrink her irises completely and show you. I can't shrink the irises without shrinking the whole eyeball, so I might have to repaint them, but let's just see what I can do here. No, it's just going to shrink the whole. Yeah, I'll have to repaint it. But before, see that dead look? Kind of looking off in the distance, no, really not a thought in the brain. After, a little bit more focus, but just still very dead. And I'll show you now how to correct all that. Also, the glitter you added to the eye, it was all really just misguided. Like, it's not even describing water on the surface of the eyeball. Alright, so let me show you how the focus in the eye and the dead look in the eye was not because we took off the glitter, but because of the size of the iris. So the eyeball itself needs to be a little bit more three-dimensional, but let me see what I can do right now. Her eyes were blue, so let me just borrow a really basic blue here. Ew. Let me just desaturate it. Alright, so that size in her pupil, in her iris right now, isn't that small. But do you see how much more realistic it made her character? And I'm crossing it just a little bit so she looks more focused. And you can enlarge them by a little bit more. But do you see how now she's a person that we know? We feel like I've seen her before. I feel like I've seen her before. You can enlarge them by a little bit. Let's enlarge by a touch more. No, that's too big, I think. So this is 50, this is 60. Let's go for 55. The resolution's pretty low. Okay. So that dead inside, that dead look came from this oversized iris. See that? Kind of filled in the whites of the eyes. The way you trust someone and see and recognize the human is by seeing the white in the eyes. Even Jordan Peterson talks about this in The Power of a Gaze. The white in the eye is an evolutionary addition to who we are, to how we communicate in our social life and our identities. Being able to look at someone and see where they're looking and know that they're looking at you. It's not just a general direction. So what happened before was she was looking in a general direction. She wasn't really having a relationship, and I guess I can say ocular relationship with the viewer. She was just staring into nothing, even after we crossed the eyes, even after we took out the glitter. So this throwing too much glitter in the eyes is not going to help you accomplish anything. There is really no set size, just as long as generally you're seeing enough white, and you can test it. And this girl's eyes are still big by beauty standards today. She's still gorgeous. But you guys are working against a super unrealistic representation of beauty that anime has represented, and anime got away with it because it's got lines. But just take a look at that new Akira movie, or whatever, not Akira, what am I saying? Alita, Angel Warrior Cheese Machine, Queso. You guys have seen that already by James Cameron, The Dying Thirst to Be the First. He has this, like, he's one character whose eyes are so freakishly large. The audience has only responded by saying, I'm freaked out by this eye size. It's not natural. They could have just found a more realistic way of drawing her. They did not need the large eye size, but I guess they're just flexing their muscles when it comes to, you know, all that graphic stuff. So if you wanted a color in her eyes, you have to make sure all the white in the eye is also tinted blue. When the color in the eye is blue, the white in the eye should also contain some blue. By the way, that Dying Thirst to Be the First, that was all credit goes to South Park. Alright, so see how the eyes look more realistic when some of the white in the eyes is also blue. And then, of course, we've got one more addition that adds even more of a familiarity to the eye, which is the pupil. Oops, it needs to be completely black. Still one color. And then you can add all that extra glam and glitter if needed. I'm going to borrow the light environment white. Oops. And just throw it on the lower half. And then so it's so funny how you guys enlarge the eye to make it look realistic in your little hybrid style. But because we shrunk the pupil, it actually looks like we're more realistic. She's still gorgeous. It's still the hybrid. Hybrid, I think, is just mostly to do with costume and a bit of pupil enlargement and iris enlargement. But she looks so much more three-dimensional now, especially because I'm using soft brush. Be careful, I'm using soft brush because I'm aware of the feather soft brush has, so I can recreate the shadow. I know you've got a little hair strand here. I'm getting rid of it for a second. Next thing is you guys don't use the real white light. Students, when they try to color skin, and I've covered this in the skin tone series we just did, but you guys don't use the yellow-white value of the light source, the exact color of the light source. I'm selecting the light source color, shifting up into the yellows as well, lowering opacity. And that's exactly what I'm using on top of the skin to give it that realistic, reflective touch. Nothing else is going to pull this off other than the exact light source color, because that's the color that's coming in. That's the value that's coming in, revealing this character. She looks realistic because we're using the light source value and color exactly on our paintbrush. Ew, I kind of used soft brush for this area, which is a mistake. I'm just going to use my blocking. Another thing is that you guys do not darken lips enough. Lips are naturally dark pigment. They're not super dark. It's not super red lipstick. But a common beginner mistake is forgetting that lips are a different kind of skin. So can anyone list to me all the different beginner mistakes I've covered so far? Her lips didn't look like they were hers because the value was just wrong. Redness, the red value, red as a value is dark. This isn't red. This is some neon value that's a light source, maybe a fire color. This is orange. This is yellow. Right? And this is not accessible. So the lower for here, this is pink. This is usually where all the good colors sit. And we've got some, well, actually right here, because it's linked to orange. It's linked to red and yellow. So orange is a little tricky because it needs yellow. All right? Yellow needs obviously a brighter light source, but this is still accessible as yellow because it's bright enough. All the best colors, you know, just sit in this little realm right here, this mid-tone realm. But red, to get really red, and this is still pink. Look at this. Even though it works for blue, it works for green, turquoise, it works for green. It works a little bit for yellow. It works for orange by a little bit. for red, it's still pink. And that's because for us to really get red, we need to get down here. Right? Red is dark by nature, and if blood pools around the lips, then that's where we're going to get all our shadow. I need to locate the corners of her mouth. I'm going to first completely erase what you've done here on the corners of the mouth. Look at this. I erased all your little dots. And the lips are gone. And you're probably like, okay, I don't have lips. You need to learn how to radially shade the lips back in. I need to find a red tone. So that they recombine with the skin. They feel like they're attached to the skin. And I'll look at your answers in a second. Right. Large to small, and as I shrink and layer my brush strokes like a sand pile, I am naturally leading the values to a darker tone. Naturally. The cavity is naturally descending as it would. And just look at that. A lot more natural, a smile, a lot more natural. A unification between the value, the beard shadow of the face and the mouth as the slow transition. And sometimes your radial shade for your mouth starts all the way out on the cheek. Like this is how far out it starts. Remember, your soft brush has a wide range. It's got massive wingspan. A little bit of light here. Almost no geometric anatomy information applied to your lips. No cylinders, nothing. You really need to get into these studies. Get into your form studies. Get into some photo referencing. Sketch over your photo reference. Find the geometric anatomy. You don't know what geometric anatomy is, do a video history on my channel. I've got tons of videos just waiting to be watched. It's not me asking for views, it's me making sure that you guys are aware that I've already offered this lesson out there. And if I wanted to, this could be a 6-hour session, and I could talk till I'm hoarse. But I've already had a video out there dedicated to geometric anatomy, if you don't know what it is. And knowledge, also sort of a beginner mistake, is this excessive kind of mustache you got going on here, almost a Hitler mustache. And that's the cast shadow of the nose. You guys kind of overdo it. I'm going to give her a little bit, she's going to have that duck lip. I'm going to give her a bit of a break in her cheeks between the upper lip and the cheek. There's a problem with the jawline. It's very, very masculine, very unusual. I need to do that. Another common beginner mistake is all over the place. Can anyone point it out? If you guys have not already. The nose, always too small. Tiny little nostrils. You guys need to remember that nostril needs to function. She needs to breathe like any other person. And you see how I'm delaying the specular highlights, but we really don't miss them. But if we bring them in, if that's something you want, I bring them in towards the lower half of the eye. Just down here. Okay. The lower part of her face seems a little sunken in. I agree. I would probably start with the chin, giving the chin a bit of a stronger value to pull it out of the shadow. And I would, like this really big upper lip, yeah, it adds beauty, but it takes away from the realism. So shrinking her upper lip to be a bit thinner. She still has full, beautiful lips. It just doesn't look like that cheesy anime lip that everyone is drawing nowadays. It has more of a realistic representation. And the upper lip can still go darker. So I darken it along the red tones, cooling it down as well. I'm not using all of the paint, the colors capacity, the brush capacity. Just enough that I get it to the level it needs to be. It's a bit too dark on the lower half here. Another thing you've done is you've kind of given her an expression in her mouth, which is okay. I mean, it's your character. I'm just working with what you did. But a closed mouth seems a little bit less naive, I guess. A closed mouth seems more dedicated, a little bit more serious, where an open mouth feels a little more vulnerable. It's just human behavior. Darkening the lower eyelid again. Another thing beginners do, which is they forget to do, is throw in the pink of the waterline. This brings in all kinds of realism on the eyes. It makes them pop. Takes them to another level. Gonna have a more fleshy value actually. Okay, so the stuff we've covered so far. Don't use soft brush. The corners of the mouths are not dots, but radially shaded. The shadow under the eye is important. Don't put sparkles. Make the pupils small enough to be realistic. Blank expression. Shadow on the eyelid. Gray tones and shadows and midtones and highlights. Excessive highlight in the eyes. Use of yellow light source. Ignoring the use of yellow light source. Darker lips. Excellent, Martin. So let's take a look at the before and after, and we've gotten rid of just a handful of beginner mistakes. But yeah, I wanted to see the answer. What is the answer? I wonder if anyone got it. The answer would be, to the question I asked, would be the hair. They used a single pixel width brush, or very small brush, to draw the hair, which is a massive, big, nasty beginner mistake. So before, kind of hard to create a relationship with the character. Very difficult to look at because flattened, large jaw, flat values all the way around. Shadows on the forehead where they shouldn't be. Almost no construction on the eyes at all. They're just flat and line dependent. Just because you have a shade under the brow bone doesn't mean everything else feels like it's popped out. The low lip, the wide lip size made her look very masculine. The small nostril. The value sharing around the face, on the forehead and down. She kind of looked like she was another creature, so maybe you were going for an alien creature, so I guess I can desaturate it. Because she's got elf ears, so her skin tone might, I mean, it can even be blue. You can even make it blue if you wanted to. So I'll keep those related. But apart from that, you weren't constructing a real forehead. So let me continue blending away at some of these cast shadows here. Just a handful of beginner mistakes I did while you guys are watching. It's not magic. It's not hocus pocus. Some other stuff I'm going to quickly do with Dodge Tool, but I don't want you guys to think that Dodge Tool is a valid tool to shade and highlight with, but it's just bringing in some quick work and putting it on midtones, not on highlights. Really, really cautious with my use of Dodge Tool. It's very unprofessional to excessively use it in your work. And I'm just using it to climb these values up into some sheen and some reflective skin nature, like the nature of skin is reflective. I mean a good balance between reflective and matte. The lips might need some extra highlight. And then I'm going to put it on highlights. Again, being very, very careful. Exposure goes all the way down. Let me make the exposure higher by a little. Not sure what my brush is doing. Okay. A little bit on the nose, and these are the tiniest little speckles of reflected light. Dodge tool saturates and illuminates, so be careful with it. The cheekbones are still really just overdone with soft brush at the moment. So I'm going to relocate this bone structure. And then smudge. Manually disperse your values. Nothing can blend for you. Write that back. And then the head. Look at what's happening to the head. The head is rotating into the neck, but there's no radial shading here to represent that. Brushstroke number 1. Brushstroke number 2. Number 3. Number 4. We want to make the head look like it's rounded. It's not just a flat cutout. Half the chin should be in shadow. So before, after. Look at that. Nice and tucked away radially. Before, after. So you want your skill to get to this level. I mean, why wouldn't you want your skill to improve? Because this is improvement. This isn't a removal of quality. This is an improvement. It looks like a realistic character. This gets you paid. This doesn't get you paid. Or this gets you paid less. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that skill is money. Okay? So it's a question. Do you want money? You will get paid. See it like this. You will get paid if you fix your beginner mistakes. Just look at that. And if art is not your main goal, you can still rest assured that people will pay you for your skill if you employed it. That's a lot of, I mean, that motivates me. Nothing will blend for you. Manually disperse your values. Excellent. So it's a short class today, but I hope it's kind of giving you insight on how habits are separate from knowledge problems. Knowledge problems are this greater lack and your greater ignorance or your greater beginnerness in what you are experienced and what you are experienced in and what you know. And what you know is a reflection of your mileage, and your mileage is your experience, and your experience is your maturity. But sometimes even the best artists who have all of that I just listed still have bad habits. So beginner mistakes are equivalent to bad habits, though they do have knowledge problems. And it's mostly stuff that beginners think are acceptable. Beginner mistakes are things that beginners think are okay to pull off. They're okay to have, because I've seen other people do it before. One massive beginner mistake is looking at a skilled artist and copying what they do, because you will copy their problems. And you may think they are skilled, but they're not. You'll get better and you'll look back, and this has happened to me so much. I used to idolize certain artists, and I look back at them today and I'm like, holy crap, you haven't improved in 5 years. Not a single change in everything looks so flat, and it's because those beginner mistakes stick with you forever. Please look out for your beginner mistakes. Be more self-aware. Hopefully these videos help you see some of them, but maybe some of them you'll experience on your own. Some of them you'll realize on your own. They do have a lot to do with our anxieties. Shortcuts are a reflection of panic. But yeah, thank you all for thank you guys for coming. And I will upload the video for the gift unwrapping for the holiday stuff that you guys sent me. I'll upload it sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. Hopefully tonight. And tomorrow will be tonight maybe, or tomorrow I'll upload the video for Portrait Studio for Mac. Portrait Studio will soon be available for Mac starting tonight or tomorrow, just as soon as the video is done. And the resource pack for the Villain Challenge, everything will be pinned on the community wall on Reddit. So please go to istebrak.com. Click on the Reddit icon and join me there. Please join. I want to see 1,000 people joining by the end of February. And I know there's 1,000 of you out there. And if anyone's not getting notifications on my channel, it's because you're not leaving likes. If you leave likes, you get notifications. YouTube doesn't bother notifying inactive followers. So if you're a subscriber and you're an active subscriber, it will notify you. Even after hours, if you guys are missing my streams or missing after hours, it's because you're not leaving likes. It's not me asking for likes. This is an actual functional problem we're having in my channel. Maybe as soon as I hit 99 or I'm 100K, I'll be able to get a channel rep somehow to help me with all these problems. If you want to join me on Patreon, you can. The new assignments are starting this month, as well as our stream on the 5th. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you guys on Tuesday, the 5th. Bye guys.